Thank you for stopping by Ballistic Barbecue. On this video, I will be making homemade smoked kielbasa. Let's get going. This recipe was provided for me by one of my subscribers by the name of John Caulfield. This is an old family recipe of his, and I guess it's supposed to be insane, so really looking forward to this. We're going to kick this off with 2 cups of water, and I am going to add 1 teaspoon of instacure #1 pink salt, 7 teaspoons kosher salt, and I'm going to stir this until it's completely dissolved. The salts have dissolved. This is cold water, by the way. All the ingredients I'm working with today are going to be cold. I'm going to place this cup of water back in the refrigerator again just to keep it cold. All right, so I'm going to use a large stainless steel bowl, and I kept this in the freezer overnight. I'm going to add 4 pounds of ground pork shoulder, 1 pound of 80/20 ground chuck. I have here 1 tablespoon sugar, 1 tablespoon garlic powder, 1 tablespoon ground black pepper, and 1/2 tablespoon onion powder. Add this in. 2 1/2 teaspoons mustard powder. This is 1 cup of powdered non-fat milk, and we are using this as a binder. I'm going to add that to the mix here. Then I'm going to mix this by hand, and I'm going to try to do this very gently to just make sure everything gets very well mixed. It's looking good. Now I'm going to add the salt and water mixture and continue mixing. All right, this is looking great. I'm going to place this in the fridge while I get my meat grinder set up to stuff some sausage casings. Now for this video, I will be preparing these sausages 2 different ways. We are stuffing them in hog casings, natural hog casings, and making a loaf. And I guess the kielbasa loaf is one of John's favorite ways because you can slice it and make some really, really good sandwiches. So doing it both ways. So what I have here are some natural hog casings that I've been soaking in water. They compact pretty aggressively in salt. You need to go through a process to get rid of the salt. And I'm going to slip the casing over the horn here. And we are ready to fire this thing up. Now, I have not tied a knot in this yet. There's going to be a lot of air being pushed through the horn, and I want to make sure all the air escapes before I tie a knot. So let's get this going. All right, so the meat's at the end of the horn now. Pulled out just a little bit of extra casing. And we are going to tie our knot. Just a simple overhand knot. Right now I'm just going by look here, and I'm going to be hanging these in my smoker, and this is about the size I want. So I'm going to pull off a little bit of that casing here. Go ahead and cut that off. Now the next thing we want to do before we tie off that other end is just make sure that there's not going to be any air inside the sausage. It'll cause problems later when it's smoking. So I'm going to go ahead and straighten this out on the cutting board here, and I have the old handy dandy sausage pricker. You can use a straight pin, just sterilize it really well, and I'm just going to go ahead and poke holes in the casing here. And then the other side. Now I'm just going to pick this up and give it a couple spins here to tighten it up even more. And we are ready to tie the knot at the top. Again, I'm going to be hanging this in my smoker. We want to make sure we tie a nice secure knot here. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and complete the rest of my casings, and then we'll make that loaf. So what I have here is just a mini loaf pan. I'm sure John uses the big loaf pans, but my priority was actually doing cased sausage, which is my preference. But I'm really anxious to try this out. Let's go ahead and scoop this in. All right, we are done for now. What I'm going to do is place all the sausage in my refrigerator. I'm going to cover this with plastic, the loaf with plastic, but I'm going to leave the cased sausages on just a cookie sheet, and I'm going to allow that outer casing to kind of dry out a little bit in the fridge. Next step is going to be smoking these bad boys. We're going to use the gator pit. Meet you outside tomorrow. All right, welcome back. It is officially tomorrow. Got the old gator pit fired up, and right now the internal temp of the pit is 160 degrees, and we are going to be smoking with applewood. Let's get it loaded up. I have a grill mat down, and this is simply for the loaf. If I didn't put this down, I would never get it up again. It would bond with my grate. And I want to explain something. Normally when I'm doing links, as you can see, I have my upper grate removed. I usually pull the lower grate, and then I have a dowel rod that I draw across here, and I hang the links from the dowel rod. But being that I'm cooking this loaf, I didn't think about it yesterday, but I'm not going to be able to hang them. All right, we're smoking. Now, in John's directions that he gave me, it was geared more towards cooking those loaves, the kielbasa loaf. And if you're cooking the loaf, you can have a higher temperature on the pit. Now, we're primarily cooking links here, and you don't want to melt the fat inside those casings. That's why you really don't want to exceed 170. So I'm going to keep my pit balanced between 160, 170. Going pretty light on the smoke. Again, we're using applewood, and probably just for about an hour or so we'll be hitting it with the smoke. I'm anticipating this cook, I don't know, anywhere between 2 and 3 hours. I'm pulling the sausage links when they hit an internal temperature of about 153, and per John's instructions on that loaf, we're going to ride that one up until about 165. So I'm sure the links will come off first. Once that happens, I'm going to open the dampers up a little bit and bring the internal temp up. Anyway, I'll see you in a bit. We are a little over 3 hours into the smoke, and the kielbasa that I had stuffed into natural cases are done. They hit that 152 mark. This next part of this process is critical. What I have here is a bucket with ice cold water in it. We need to pull them right out of the pit into the water to stop that cooking. We need to shock these. If you don't do this, you're going to end up with very shriveled up casings. The casings are going to continue to shrink and shrivel, and it's going to look like a big Slim Jim. We don't want that. So let's get these out of the pit. Just look at that gorgeous, gorgeous color. Now the loaf still has ways to go before it hits that 165 mark that John suggests. So I'm going to shut the lid, and we're going to pump up the temp in the pit just a little bit. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is take these in the house. I'll pat these dry, and then I'm going to put them on like a cookie cooling rack, and we're going to allow these to bloom for 3 hours at room temperature. What will happen is the color will deepen on these, and the flavor is going to intensify, and it really makes for a good sausage. So we'll see when these are all bloomed and ready to slice. All right, so that 3 hours have passed, and the sausage is bloomed along with the sun behind me. Forgive me, I'm going to try to deal with this poor lighting right now, but let's give this a try. Well, that looks like kielbasa to me. All right, let me slice some of this loaf here. Oh, very interesting. All right, let's cook this up. So I'm going to be using the PK grill, and I just have a little ceramic plancha on here. Lay down some canola oil. Well, I got to tell you, it looks out of this world and it smells unbelievable. Let's give it a try. Going with one of the more traditional stuffed kielbasas first. It's really good. It's got just the right amount of smoke, just the right amount of seasoning, and it definitely tastes like kielbasa. It's good kielbasa, really good kielbasa, fresh. I've never had it so fresh. Let's try one of these loaves here. So the look reminds me of Spam, but it smells like no Spam I've ever tried. It's a winner. They both taste, I mean, the same, very similar. There's some textural differences with the links, obviously, and then you get that little snap from the casing, which I dig on that. But for ease, if you wanted to make a kielbasa recipe and just not worry about the stuffing, the links, or anything, the loaf is the way to go. And there's a lot of endless possibilities. My wheels are turning here. Anyway, guys, as usual, thank you for stopping by. John, thank you for the recipe. Killer recipe. You've been a big help. And I will be making this again, definitely. Anyway, I will see you on the next video. Cheers.